The shadow hunter, the man who made the Mossad take notes. In the winter of 1945, the world was exhaling. The Great War was finally over. In New York, London, and Toronto, the streets were flooded with people celebrating. The nightmare was supposed to be finished. But in a small, salt-aired workshop in Halifax, Nova Scotia, the air stayed heavy. Patrick Callahan was a man of few words and calloused hands. At 51, he was a master joiner, a craftsman who understood that a single millimeter of error could ruin an entire structure. He lived for his son, Michael, a combat medic who had survived the mud of Italy and the hedgerows of France. Michael was the only piece of his heart left after his wife had passed years prior. But then the letter arrived. It wasn't a standard killed in action notice. It was a report of a massacre. Michael had been executed by an SS unit after the armistice was signed. A cold-blooded war crime hidden in the chaotic paperwork of a dying Reich. The military told Patrick the killers had vanished. They told him the ratlands to South America were too deep and too dangerous to trace. They told a grieving father to go back to his woodshop and try to find peace. They forgot one thing: a carpenter has more patience than a soldier. And Patrick Callahan was about to start his final project. Patrick didn't buy a gun. He bought a ticket to London. He sold his home, his tools, and his memories. He spent 6 months in the archives of the Red Cross and the Allied High Command, posing as a frantic, displaced person looking for family. He wasn't looking for Nazis in general. He was looking for 7 specific men. He applied the joiner's mind to the hunt. To build a table, you must understand the grain of the wood. To catch a monster, you must understand his habits. His first target was Hans Dieter, a former SS Hauptsturmführer. Dieter wasn't hiding in a bunker. He was working as a baker in a quiet village near Munich. Patrick didn't rush in. He worked as a local laborer for 3 months, watching Dieter's routine with terrifying precision. He watched him walk to the bakery at 4 a.m. He watched him smoke a cigarette by the river at dusk. One morning, the bakery didn't open. Dieter was found in his cellar, sitting perfectly upright. There was no struggle, no bullet wounds. Just a single surgical puncture from a steel wood scribe, a sharp tool used for marking timber, driven directly into the base of his skull. The message was silent. It was precise. It was the mark of a craftsman. By 1946, the ghost of Halifax was moving towards South America. The remaining targets had fled through the Vatican ratlands to Argentina. They thought they were safe behind the protection of the Peron government, shielded by thousands of miles of ocean. But Patrick Callahan was already there. This is where the stories shift from a tragedy to a masterclass in espionage. Patrick had no formal training. He had no handler or government funding, but he had the invisibility of the working class. A man with a toolbox and a lunch pail can go anywhere. A man who looks like a tired, aging grandfather is never a suspect. In the humid jungles of Misiones, Patrick tracked 3 more targets. He didn't use bombs, he used sabotage. He loosened the brake lines on a truck. He tainted a water supply with local toxins. He created an atmosphere of divine accidents. The ex-Nazis began to panic. They whispered about a shadow hunter who knew their sins. They stayed behind locked doors, but Patrick was already inside the walls. He was the creak in the floorboard. He was the shadow in the corner. He was the man who waited. Years later, when the Israeli Mossad was forming its elite units to hunt down Adolf Eichmann, they came across a series of unsolved files from the late 1940s. These files described a Canadian civilian who had successfully liquidated high-value targets with 0 collateral damage and 0 footprint. The Mossad analysts were obsessed with Callahan's deep cover techniques. He didn't use high-tech gadgets. He used psychological pressure. He would leave a photo of the victim's crime on their doorstep a week before the strike. I'll make them live in fear until their own hearts began to fail them. Patrick's methodology, the slow burn, became a silent blueprint for modern intelligence operations. He proved that the most dangerous weapon in the world isn't a 9mm pistol. It's a man with a singular, unbreakable purpose and nothing left to lose. He showed that patience is the ultimate predator. By 1948, the list had only one name left: Colonel Klaus von Steyr, the man who had stood over Michael and given the order to fire. Steyr was living like a king in a fortified villa, surrounded by armed guards. He felt untouchable. On a cold October night, Steyr walked into his private study to pour a drink. He found a man sitting in the dark. Patrick didn't point a gun. He didn't even stand up. He simply held up the weathered photo of his son. The conversation that followed was never recorded, but the aftermath was clear. When the guards found Steyr the next morning, he was gone. No blood, no mess. Just a man who had finally met the consequences of his own history. Patrick Callahan vanished that night. He didn't take any money. He didn't take any jewelry. He only took the ledger where he had crossed out the final name. Patrick Callahan's name isn't in the history books. You won't find his statue in a park or his name on a plaque. But his legacy lives in the shadows of the intelligence world. He was a reminder that justice doesn't always come from a courtroom or a government decree. Sometimes it comes from a woodshop in Halifax. He was the shadow hunter, the man who proved that the strongest bond in the world is a father's love, and his most lethal tool is his memory. Across 3 continents in 3 years, he balanced a ledger written in blood. He didn't do it for the glory. He didn't do it for the history books. He did it for Michael. And once the job was finished, the shadow hunter simply went home to the silence.